Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about an interaction I had with somebody the other day that for some reason I just kind of dwelled on a little bit and kind of replayed in my mind and was thinking about it. And it's an interaction that I think I've had many times over my life, but for some reason this one stuck out at me. I was talking with somebody and I asked them a question, and their response to me was, "Well, if I'm being honest, blah 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 blah," and they gave me their answer. And I don't know why I don't always think this, but for some reason, when they said that, my kind of knee jerk in my own head was, "What do you mean if you're being honest? Are you saying that before this moment in our conversation you weren't being honest? Like, do I need to look at everything else you said before this moment as suspect? Or is it, kind of the old adage of if a person starts a sentence with, if I'm being honest, blah, 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 it means that more than likely what they've just said to you is not honest. It could go either way. But what it made me think of is the importance of making sure that you understand if you're in a leadership role or a role of influence at all, your values are conveyed through your behaviors 1,000 to 1 compared to how they come out in your words. And the more that you try to articulate your values, the more I think it can be easy to think that your words are kind of making up the slack, like, oh, where people don't see my behaviors, where people don't see my values in my behaviors, they'll hear it from me in my words, and therefore that does the same thing. Not only does it not do the same thing, it sometimes can hurt you. It can hurt versus just kind of taking the road of the quiet slowness of the tortoise and the hare, the slow and steady. It's okay if it doesn't feel like you're winning the race in the moment. That an interaction you have with somebody, they got the wrong impression, or they might think something differently of you than how you want to be conveyed. Trying to articulate your values in words makes you come off as self-serving. And if instead you just stay the course and continue making decisions where your behaviors show your values, then that will work out better for you in the long run, because the person you interacted with is very likely to be watching your behaviors anyway based on the previous interaction, because everybody's always trying to validate or dispel things they believe about you, right? We're creatures of patterns, and we want to predict each other because that's where our own personal safety comes in. I want to know how my leader's going to react in this moment. I want my people to know how I'm going to react in this moment. The way they know that is by watching my behaviors. The way I know that is by watching their behaviors. And if I see a behavior that doesn't fit with the pattern that I already think, I'm likely to want to go, oh, I need to watch more closely, because is my pattern wrong, or is this one piece of information a fluke and the pattern is right? Right? So it can go both ways. But you can't impact that belief in others by your words, only by your actions.
Yeah, I think it's such a great call out. I think sometimes we can self-soothe in the words that we use and really kind of feel ourselves and kind of stand up with 10 toes down and our head back and talk about what we believe and why it matters, and all our takes on a lot of things. But the reality is it's always going to come down to the behaviors and the things that we actually do, the way that we show up all the time. It's kind of to your point around like, if I'm being honest, right? Mm-hmm. It's like when I hear people say something like, well, I just, I'm so humble. Okay. Well, like, if you actually understand the word like humility, just the fact that you made that statement is like, that right. Says you're actually not like to self-describe yourself. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things where it's like, no, like I want to be humble. I want to lead with humility. Like, that's okay. That's a great statement. But like, your people or those around you get to assign that to you based upon the behaviors that you have. I'm trustworthy, Chris. You just have to trust me, bro. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't get to like, okay, you can say, all right, well, I'm glad that you're trustworthy. You should be trustworthy. But now I'm going to keep an eye and make sure that everything that you're doing is trustworthy, right? Versus just being trustworthy. Like again, those are the things where I think from from a leadership standpoint and from a understanding of the importance of your behaviors, how you show up, and the consistency in which that happens is critical to building relationships that are built within trust and integrity and understanding and transparency. Like you say it all the time, it's like every interaction is an opportunity to pour into what this relationship's going to be or how your people will see you.
Right.
And that's a critical part of that. Is like, am I doing things in such a way that I am authentic, that I'm doing what I say, that I'm making sure that how I talk, what I talk about, the things that I do are aligned with how my team or my leaders see me and see me as a leader and understand me as a leader. Those things are the most critical, because that is really reflective of then who I am as a leader versus just what I say I am as a leader. And that really is the space that I think sometimes I see a lot of leaders falter there because they don't even hear what they're saying. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I hear this from time to time, is somebody will say something like, yeah, I'm so excited for this thing, or this approach has been amazing. This strategy has been unreal because it's just allowed us to really connect with our people and provide them with a level of support and clarity that they didn't have before. And then I scratched my head and I said, okay, well, why? Why didn't they have it before? Because isn't that your job? like, aren't you supposed to do that all the time? Like, aren't you supposed to provide clarity and support to your people? Like, why is it this thing or this strategy or this tool now all of a sudden, is this now forcing you to go and support your people and be clear? But we don't even think about it when we say those things sometimes of
Right.
What are we implying to the previous, to your whole, like, if I'm being honest comment, like if I'm saying that now, what was I being before?
Right.
So if I have to say it up front, what am I really saying? And like, at what point do I have to make sure that you're being honest with me in the future? If you said it once, I need you to preface that every time so that I know you're being honest. Like, I just think that, like, those are the things where our words can stumble us up, but the thing that will never stumble you up is the actual behaviors that you do every day and the way that you show up for people and the way that you interact with them. Those things are going to have a lot more weight to how people perceive you and how they believe you from a leadership standpoint than just the words that you say.
Right. So let's talk about why people do that. Right. So if we go from the standpoint of that, all people's impression of you is a kind of a summary or an average of the last, dozen interactions that you've had with them. Now, if you're talking about like personal, very long-term relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, it's probably more than a dozen things. But when it comes to business relationships and professional relationships, it takes a few interactions to develop a sense of a pattern with somebody. And then if a behavior or an action happens that doesn't align with that, then you start to question the pattern, right? And you look for more information. But we're always looking for more information subconsciously. And where that trips people up is leaders' time is finite. And because of that, you only have a certain number of interactions with a person where those interactions kind of inform their opinion about you. And I think a lot of people are very quick to try to convey something with their words versus their actions because they're trying to make sure that interaction counted, right? It's like, I want to be seen as trustworthy, but this interaction didn't give me an opportunity to be seen as trustworthy because trust wasn't an issue in this interaction. So I'm going to find a way of telling this person at the end, hey, you know what? You can depend on me. I'm a trustworthy person, but that had nothing to do with the interaction. And that can hurt the relationship more than not saying anything and just trusting that over time, the person's opinion of you will grow and form and develop based on the very strong evidence of whatever your behaviors are. Strong one way or the other. Any behavior is worth, thousands of interactions of words, right? It's just the actions are what count. And even if you have an off day and you have one interaction with somebody where you came off not as how you want to be seen, you can address that. You can talk to them about it, right? You can say, hey, but you have to own it, of course. Like this is not how I want to be seen by you. I don't, I had something else going on, and that's why I came off that way. There's no excuse for it, but I just want to let you know that's what it is. If that really is true when you say that, that's fine to say, because what you're essentially doing is you're asking a person, hey, you know what? Be mindful of my actions going forward. I'm telling you that what you saw out of my behavior is not who I actually am, that's the aberration. That's not the pattern. That's the fluke. And so I'm telling you, watch out, because the other things you see from me will be more in line with what I believe the pattern is of who I actually am, and not with the fluke. If you're lying or lying to yourself, then your behavior will align with what you say the fluke is, and it'll just strengthen their opinion of you as being terrible. But if it truly is real, then you can say that to them. But just know that the behavior matters so much more, and trying to articulate what you want people to see out of you, or fabricating moments to be able to showcase a behavior, even if that behavior really is you, you'll come off as fake, and that won't give you the credit you're looking for, versus just kind of the slow and steady. Do those behaviors over time. Know that the opportunities to display them need to be organic for them to count, and that on a long enough timeline, it will work out if that truly is how you behave.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up with a couple of questions that you can ask your direct reports, if you have them, and whether you have direct reports or not, some peers, people you work alongside closely. You want to ask some questions to kind of figure out how you show up as either a leader or as a colleague. And these questions can go along the lines of, what do I do that supports you in your role? And what do I do that doesn't support you in your role? Like, what could I do differently? Or what have I done that could create hurdles for you or roadblocks in getting your work done? It's really, really imperative that you are able to answer those questions on behalf of them in your own head prior to asking them. Because the goal isn't to glean more information. The goal is primarily to see whether or not there's alignment between how you perceive the situation and how they perceive the situation. And so if you don't believe that you've created any roadblocks for anybody, and you're truly trying to find that information out, if you hear a response of, oh no, you don't do anything poor, like this is great, you support me perfectly, it's possible that's true. Or it's possible that you don't have the relationship with them that you need to be able to ask that question, and they're not giving you the right answer. They're not giving you a truthful answer. But if you can answer the question by realizing that there are people with whom you have a relationship that has been hurt by roadblocks that you've put in place, either inadvertently or intentionally, or based on your prioritization, that you especially ask those people, because you want to hear them articulate the thing that you already think in your head, and be able to see if that's true. Once you get that information from those people you're asking, you'll be able to see whether how you want to be perceived by people aligns with the things that you say and the things that you do. And if you're hearing a lot of information that doesn't align with how you want to be viewed, the only way to change that perception is by repeated behaviors over time that change the pattern people see in you and ultimately change their perception of you. It will take a dozen or more interactions with a person, which, depending on how long you work with them, it could take a few weeks or several months to make that change happen. It will happen. People do discard old information. It's just that the new pattern needs to be stronger than the old pattern, and how long that old pattern was in place will impact it, and how long you can get the new pattern going will influence it. But doing that is the only way to make it lasting, and to make people not just kind of question your behavior as suspect or as self-serving.
Yeah, it's tough because you want to gain information and understand how you're showing up for your team and your people without telling them exactly what you're doing with the information, because then by default, like you can influence the outcome of the answers.
Sure.
And then you're not helping at all. So like
It's
again,
self-serving
like
just by asking, technically.
Exactly right. And you think of like 360 assessments and things like there are other tools that you have out there to understand some things around your leadership and your impact and your influence. But when you're really kind of boiling it down to like, are my words matching my actions and how are my actions showing up for others? It really takes some time to understand how do you get that info in a way that allow someone to be honest with you and to be able to share how you're showing up while also not making it overly obvious as to what you're asking or, kind of planting the seed of what you want to hear or what you think or how you believe you're showing up. It's like if I said, hey, Chris, I'm just working on my ability to be more transparent with the information that I have and what I share with you. Like, how am I doing with that transparency? Well, then, what I'm saying? Like, I've already led you down the path, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. To say like, okay, different question. Chris, I want to make sure you have all the information that you need to be successful in the role. Can you give me an example or a time when maybe like the information that I gave to you was either delayed or you didn't have enough to be as effective as you wanted to have?
That sounds very different.
Very different, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it allows, because again, it opens the door to getting the information and getting the examples and getting the clarity that you need to realize then like, am I actually going to have an impact here on my own behavior? And am I getting true, authentic insights that will help me to redirect it?
Well, and I think that the reason why that works that way, the reason why the first example you gave is a terrible one and the second example you gave is a good one, the reason why it works that way is because the first example is essentially a person trying to influence how they're perceived. The second example is a person trying to change their behavior. And behavior is all that matters because the behavior becomes how you're perceived because all we are is the collective of our actions. And so if you start with the question with, I want to be more transparent, then what you're essentially saying is, I don't want to change my behavior. I want to change how I'm perceived. And it's impossible to change how you're perceived without actually changing your behavior. So you're essentially telling the person, I'm looking for a shortcut here. Help me out here. I want to change the way you perceive me without having to actually do any real work. So let's walk this through together, right? And that is essentially what you said to the person. But if you talk about it from a behavioral standpoint, when have I done this right? When have I done this not right? And you use that in order to influence your future behavior, trusting that those future behaviors will influence how that person perceives you. It takes work. It takes the hard work. There's no magic pill. There's just interactions with a person over time where they can see a consistent pattern in your behavior. And any attempt to circumvent that difficult but very effective process, it will hurt the relationship more than will help it. And a true dedication to it not only helps that one relationship, it will help every relationship you have in business and in your role as a leader.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.